AITA for what I said when my parents announced they were having another child. They have 7 children. My parents have 7 kids. There's me 16, Kayla 13, Robin 12, Sam 10, Lachi 8, Zoe 6 and Robbie 4 years old. I've always thought that when people say, "You're only as old as you feel," they don't mean it as literally as I've come to experience. Because if that's true, I'm decades older than 16. I don't even remember when I last felt like a kid. I guess it all started when I was 13. That's when the walls of our small, cramped house really started to close in, and I realized I had to grow up faster than anyone should. I started working then, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My parents couldn't afford much, not even the basics sometimes. I remember that first job mowing lawns in the neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was enough to save up for a laptop. Let me tell you about that laptop. It was ancient, something you'd find in a thrift store that might work if you were lucky, but it was my lifeline. When the school shut down and everything moved online, it was the only thing that kept me from falling behind. We didn't even have internet when the lockdown started. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at the screen of an old tablet we had lying around, trying to log into my classes, but the thing was so slow it couldn't keep up. That's when I knew I needed a real computer. I saved every penny I made, every dollar from mowing lawns, raking leaves, shoveling snow. I finally had enough, and I bought that laptop. It wasn't new, not by a long shot, but it worked. And for the first time in a while, I felt like I had a bit of control over my life. But control is a funny thing. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. My parents promised that things would get better after Robbie was born. He was their last one, they said. No more babies, they said. They were going to get back on track, start saving money, and make sure that I didn't have to work just to pay for stuff I needed for school. For a while, I believed them. I started to think about what I wanted to do with my life. Cooking has always been a passion of mine. I'd watch cooking shows whenever I got the chance, trying to learn as much as I could. I started dreaming of working in a restaurant, maybe even owning one someday. Not college, there was no way we could afford that, and besides, my grades weren't exactly great. But working in a restaurant, learning the ropes, maybe one day running my own place, that felt achievable. I even started experimenting in the kitchen when I could, trying out new recipes, learning how to make dishes that were more than just basic meals. But dreams are a luxury I can't afford. My life has been one of constant juggling school, work, taking care of my siblings, managing the house when my parents were working. It's like there's this never-ending list of things I need to do, and every time I think I'm getting a handle on it, something new gets added, and the whole thing threatens to come crashing down. I remember the nights I'd stay up late, trying to finish homework after a long day of work and chores, my eyes heavy, my head pounding. I'd lie in bed after finally turning off the lights, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the future. But it was hard to see anything but more of the same. And then Monday happened. My parents sat us all down in the living room, their faces serious. I knew something was up. My siblings didn't notice, of course. They were too busy talking, laughing, unaware of the storm that was about to hit, but I felt it in the pit of my stomach. And then they said it, "We're having another baby." For a moment, the room was silent. My siblings were confused, surprised, asking questions all at once, but I couldn't speak. All I could think was, not again. It felt like the ground was pulled out from under me, and I was falling, with nothing to grab onto. I think I even cried a little. And that's saying something, because I'm not a crier. I've had to be strong, had to keep it together because if I don't, who will? But this was too much. I couldn't hold back, I said. Not again. It slipped out before I could stop it. My parents noticed, of course. They didn't like it. They told me to check my attitude, that I was being ungrateful, that I wasn't supporting them, but I couldn't stop. It all came pouring out how they'd promised Robbie would be the last, how they said things would get better, how they put so much on me, and now they've gone and made everything worse. I told them they were reckless, that they weren't thinking about the rest of us, that we were already struggling, and now it's going to be even harder. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help it. I was angry, frustrated, scared, and I felt betrayed. They looked at me like I was the one doing something wrong, like I was the bad guy for not being happy about this news. They told me to stop acting like they were doing something to me, that accidents happen, and they'd never consider an abortion, even if they could. They told me to focus on making things okay, to stop being so negative. It's like they don't get it. They don't understand how heavy this is. I'm 16, but I've been carrying the weight of an adult for years. Babysitting my siblings so they can work nights or just get a break. Taking care of the house, making sure everyone's fed, that the place is clean, that things are running smoothly. And now, there's going to be another baby. Another mouth to feed, another person to take care of. I've tried so hard to be the good son, the responsible one. I've taken on more than any teenager should have too, because I knew my parents needed the help. But I'm just one person, and there's only so much I can do. And now, with another baby on the way, it feels like they're asking me to do the impossible. People always say that money isn't everything, that having a loving family is more important. But I don't know if I believe that anymore. My family feels more like a burden than a blessing. I know that sounds awful, but it's the truth. They're a responsibility, something I have to take care of, something that weighs me down. And I hate that. I hate that I can't just be a normal teenager, that I can't just focus on school and friends and figuring out who I am. I hate that I have to worry about whether we can afford the bills, or if my laptop breaks and I can't afford to fix it, or what'll happen if we run out of food. I feel trapped, like there's no way out. I can't even think about my future anymore, because it feels like I don't have one. All I can see is more of the same, more stress, more responsibility, more pressure. And now, with this new baby on the way, it's only going to get worse. So yeah, I guess I'm the asshole for not being happy about this pregnancy, but I don't think I can be. Not when it feels like my life is slipping further and further out of my control, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. After our talk, my parents left me alone in the living room, the weight of their disappointment hanging heavy in the air. I sat there, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. My siblings had scattered, each of them retreating to their own spaces, probably trying to make sense of what just happened in their own ways. But I couldn't move. I felt like I was stuck, paralyzed by the sheer enormity of what lay ahead. I thought about Kayla, Robin, Sam, Lachi, Zoe, and little Robbie. They're good kids, they really are, but they're kids, and they need so much. And I'm supposed to be the one to help take care of them. That's been my role for as long as I can remember, but it's exhausting. It's not just the physical labor of cleaning up after them, feeding them, making sure they're doing their homework and staying out of trouble. It's the emotional weight of knowing that I'm responsible for them, that if something goes wrong, it's on me. And now, with another baby coming, I feel like I'm being crushed under that weight. My parents think I'm just being dramatic, that I'm overreacting. But they don't see the bigger picture. They don't see what I see. We're already struggling to make ends meet. The government assistance helps, but it's not enough. My parents aren't good with money, they're always buying things we don't need, and then we're short on groceries or can't pay a bill. I've tried to help, to be the voice of reason, but it's like talking to a brick wall. I started thinking about all the things I've missed out on because of my responsibilities at home. I don't have much of a social life. Most of my friends have drifted away because I can never hang out with them. I've missed out on school events, on parties, on just being a teenager. I can't remember the last time I did something just for fun, something that wasn't tied to taking care of my family or trying to make money. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't shake the heaviness in my chest. It felt like a physical weight pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I know I wouldn't be able to sleep with all these thoughts racing through my mind, so I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I knocked on my parents' bedroom door. It was late, and the house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering in the air, before I finally knocked. There was a brief pause, and then I heard my dad's voice, muffled through the door. "Come in." I pushed the door open slowly, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. My parents were sitting up in bed, my mom leaning against the headboard with a book in her lap, and my dad scrolling through something on his phone. They both looked up when I walked in, surprise flickering across their faces. It wasn't often that I came to them like this. "What's up, buddy?" my dad asked, setting his phone down on the nightstand. I hesitated, trying to find the right words. I need to talk to you guys about something." My mom closed her book, setting it aside. "Sure, sweetie, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, the words catching in my throat. "Why did you decide to have another baby?" I finally asked, my voice quieter than I intended. "You said Robbie would be the last. You promised." The room felt heavy with the weight of my question. My parents exchanged a glance, their expressions shifting from surprise to something else, something I couldn't quite read. My mom sighed softly, and my dad ran a hand through his hair, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. "It wasn't exactly planned, kiddo," my dad said after a moment. "It just happened." "But you promised," I repeated, my voice trembling slightly. "You said no more kids. You said things would get better, that I wouldn't have to keep working just to pay for school stuff, or to help out with everything. And now," I trailed off, feeling the frustration and hurt bubbling up inside me. "Now it's going to be even harder, for all of us." My mom looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together. "We know it's a lot to ask, and we never wanted to put so much on you." "Don't say you couldn't abort," I cut in, my voice sharper than I intended. "I'm not asking you to do that, but you know about contraception, right? There are ways to prevent this from happening. You didn't have to let it get to this point." My parents' faces froze, a mixture of shock and hurt flashing in their eyes. My dad looked like he was about to say something, but he stopped himself, his mouth snapping shut. My mom's eyes welled up with tears, and she quickly wiped them away, trying to keep her composure. "We know about contraception," my mom said softly, her voice trembling. "But sometimes things don't go as planned. It wasn't something we intended, and we were going to tell you all sooner, but we just didn't know how." "Didn't know how," I repeated, incredulous. "You're the parents, you're supposed to know how to handle this stuff, how to plan for things. But it feels like you didn't think about any of us when you decided to have another baby. We're already struggling, and now it's going to be even worse. You said things would get better, but they haven't." My dad sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "We didn't want to put more on your plate, son. We really didn't, but life doesn't always go the way we want it to. We're trying our best to make things work, but it's not easy. We know you've had to take on a lot, and we appreciate everything you do for this family. But sometimes, things are out of our control." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "But it's not fair," I said, my voice breaking. "It's not fair that I have to carry so much. I'm supposed to be a kid, but I don't feel like one. I feel like an adult who's already burned out. I don't know how much more I can take." My mom reached out, placing a hand on my arm. "We're sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We're so sorry. We never wanted you to feel this way." I pulled back slightly, not wanting to be comforted by empty words. "But I do," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I do feel this way. And now, with another baby coming, it's only going to get worse. I don't know how we're going to manage. I don't know how I'm going to manage." There was a long, heavy silence. My parents looked at each other, their faces lined with worrying and guilt. Finally, my dad spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "We'll figure it out," he said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "We'll find a way to make it work. We always do." But his words didn't bring me any comfort. If anything, they made me feel more hopeless. Because finding a way to make it work always meant more sacrifices, more struggles, more weight on my shoulders. And I didn't know how much longer I could carry it all. I stood up, suddenly feeling like I couldn't be in that room any longer. "I'm going to bed," I muttered, turning towards the door. I just needed to know why. My parents watched me go, their eyes filled with regret and something else, something that looked a lot like helplessness. As I walked back to my room, I felt a bitter mix of emotions swirling inside me. I knew they didn't mean to hurt me, that they were trying their best in a difficult situation. But that didn't change the reality of what we were facing. And it didn't change the fact that I felt like I was slowly being crushed under the weight of it all. The next morning, I woke up with that same heaviness in my chest. I could hear the usual morning chaos downstairs, Kayla arguing with Robin over something, Sam and Lachi trying to get Zoe and Robbie ready, my mom bustling around the kitchen, probably trying to figure out what to make for breakfast with whatever we had left in the pantry. The sounds of my siblings reminded me that, like every other day, I had to put on a brave face and get through it. But it was harder today, knowing that nothing had really changed after our talk. If anything, it felt like things were just going to get worse. I went through the motions, helping get the younger kids ready, making sure everyone had what they needed for school, and trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in the pit of my stomach. My parents were quieter than usual, which only added to the unease. It was like we were all walking on eggshells, trying not to set off something that was already teetering on the edge. Once everyone was out the door and on their way to school, I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the empty bowl in front of me. I didn't really have an appetite, but I knew I needed to eat something, so I forced myself to shovel down a few spoonfuls of cereal. My parents were still in the kitchen, moving around each other in that practice dance they had, my mom wiping down the counters, my dad rifling through the stack of bills on the counter, both of them avoiding each other's eyes. Finally, my dad cleared his throat, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "Hey, kiddo," he said, not looking up from the bills, "can we talk for a minute?" I felt my stomach drop, but I nodded, pushing my bowl aside. "Yeah, sure." My mom sat down across from me, her face drawn and tired. My dad joined us a moment later, his expression serious. I could tell they'd been talking about our conversation from last night, and I braced myself for whatever was coming next. "We've been thinking about what you said last night," my dad started, his voice carefully measured. "About how much you've been carrying and how hard it's been for you." I didn't say anything, just nodded for him to continue. My mom reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. "We want you to know that we understand how you're feeling," she said softly. "And we're really, truly sorry that you feel like so much has been put on your shoulders. But we also need you to understand something," my dad cut in, his tone firm. "You're still a kid, and we don't want you to feel like you have to be an adult just yet. We've been thinking, and we realized that maybe we've been relying on you too much, asking too much of you." For a brief moment, a flicker of hope sparked inside me. Maybe they were finally going to take some of the load off, maybe things would start to get better. But then my dad kept talking, and that hope was quickly snuffed out. "We're not saying you shouldn't help out," he continued, his eyes locking onto mine. "But we've also realized that you don't have a lot going on outside of school and helping out around here. And with another baby coming, things are going to get even busier, so we're going to need you to step up even more." I blinked, trying to process what he was saying. "Step up more?" I echoed, not quite believing what I was hearing. My mom nodded, her hand still resting on mine. "Yes, we know it's a lot, but you're strong, and you've already been doing so much. We're really proud of you for that, but with the new baby, we're going to need your help even more. And we think it'll be good for you two to have more responsibility, to be more involved in taking care of your siblings." My mind was racing. They'd said they understood how I felt, that they were sorry for how much they'd put on me, but now they were asking for even more. How did that make any sense? "But, you just said last night that you didn't want to put more on me," I stammered, trying to make sense of their twisted logic. "You said you knew it was too much." "We did," my dad agreed, leaning forward. "But we also know that this is our family, and we all need to pitch in to make it work. You don't have a job outside of school, you're not involved in any extracurricular activities." "Because I don't have time," I interrupted, my frustration bubbling over. "I don't have time for anything outside of this house because I'm always here, taking care of everything." "We understand that," my mom said quickly, her voice soothing, like she was trying to calm a wild animal. "But we think that by being more involved with your siblings, you'll find it rewarding. You're so good with them already, and this way, you'll be even more connected with the family. And you won't have to worry about missing out on things because you'll be right here, where you're needed most." I stared at them, dumbfounded. They couldn't be serious. "But I already take care of them," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "I already watch them, clean up after them, make sure they're okay. And now you want me to do even more. What about what I want? What about my dreams? I wanted to learn to cook, to maybe get a job at a restaurant someday. How am I supposed to do that if I'm always stuck here, taking care of everyone else? My dad sighed, rubbing his temples. We're not saying you can't have your own dreams, but right now, we all have to make sacrifices. And honestly, son, cooking isn't exactly a stable career. We just think it would be better if you focused on helping out more around here for now. You'll have time for other things later, but right now, the family needs you. Besides, my mom added, it's not like you're really missing out on anything. You don't have a job lined up, you're not doing anything outside of school. And being here with your family is important. We're all going to need each other more than ever once the baby comes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like they were completely dismissing everything I'd said, everything I'd been feeling. Like they were telling me that my dreams, my desires, didn't matter, only the family did. I felt like I was being suffocated, like the walls were closing in around me and I couldn't breathe. So you're just telling me to give up? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. To forget about what I want and just, be a second parent to my siblings? My mom shook her head, her eyes sad. No, honey, we're just asking you to be patient. To understand that right now, the family needs you. And maybe, by helping out more, you'll see that it's not such a bad thing. That being there for your siblings is rewarding in its own way. I couldn't listen to any more of this. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I don't need rewards, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I just wanted something for myself. But I guess that doesn't matter. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I could hear my mom calling after me, her voice pleading, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I felt like I was going to explode, like the frustration and anger and sadness were all boiling over inside me and I needed to get away before I lost it completely. Am I an AITA for saying all that and acting like that?